There we go. I've got so many buttons around here I've got to keep pushing. Thanks. I'm glad I'm watching Suze. Hello to everybody. Hello to everybody. Who was in first tonight? I've got a feeling it was Sunflower. Oh no, Alex A was in. Sunflower shortly thereafter. Hello, wonderful, beautiful people. Dave O shortly after that. Veronique DM's in there. Paul O. Maria. Hello, God, you were all in early. Look, I'll start again. Thank you very much to everybody who said a prayer, everybody who sent a text, everybody who made a phone call, everybody who gave us a thought in the last couple of days, well, the last week or so. Today, we were meant to go to court and we were notified that he had changed his plea from not guilty to guilty, meaning that Laura did not have to go into court, and neither did I for that matter, but I wasn't worried about it. But she didn't have to go into court and relive the shit that he did to her, and that was like a mountain being lifted off her shoulders. A mountain being lifted off her shoulders. It's just been such a relief. So this all goes well for the future for him and her, I guess. Her, because I hope now she can draw a line under this and move forward. She's taken great steps in the last 3 years, and hopefully better ones to come sooner rather than later. This guy will get sentenced in early July, and he will get sentenced for not only this charge, but I believe a great many other charges that he's facing. It's not uncommon for criminals of this ilk to fuck with the heads of their victims. It's the only way to put it. So they make them go through the whole, rigmarole of giving a statement. That is, if the person's brave enough to stand up and give a statement. Then, on the strength of that statement, these guys get to look at it with their counsel, if they've got one, and decide whether or not they're going to challenge it, decide to plead not guilty, or take a plea bargain and take guilty. In our particular case, we had video evidence of one case specifically that certainly showed him breaking laws and orders given against him. What sort of defense he can mount against that video, I didn't know, and thought it quite strange at the time. And I had in the back of my head, and I did say to Laura when we were first advised, I said, we might just get to the court door and he changes his verdict, changes his plea. They do that sort of thing just to fuck with your head, give you another week of sleepless nights and tears and terror before they get to go away for however long it is. Now, what I hope that audio is working all right now. As Alan's just saying he can't lip read. Maybe he came in a bit late. What time is it? Everybody hearing me all right now? He says. I have. Should be all working all right. Is everybody hearing me okay? Talking. I'll bring this down a bit closer. Maybe that'll help. Good. You can hear me. Great. Wonderful. Okay, so that's what they do. They like to bring their victims in and fuck with them, and there wouldn't be any benefit. Sorry, this microphone's about to fall off, so I'll just manhandle it a bit and see if I can make it stay there. They want to play mind games, and it terrifies certain victims. And Laura was no different in certain ways, but she's was prepared to stand up to it and bellow on. And she's only been able to stand up to it because of the strength we have gained from the communities that we've come to, met, and grown here at Voice of Freedom. Between my place, Darren Bergwerf, and Anna, his wonderful other half, and the team at my place in Frankston, all the crews in Melbourne, all the My Place folks in Melbourne that we've run into in the fair of 4 or 5, 6 different places that we've done shows down there through Victoria, all the people in Singleton, all the people in New South Wales that we've been to, in the tiny towns to the big cities, who've wrapped their arms around her, who've shown her such love, such wonderful spirit, such advice, and there have been a few tears shed as well, and shared, I should say. So you people are the ones who've given my daughter back to me. I've said this quite a lot. From when she came to me after what this bastard had done to her to where she is today is light years ahead of where she came from. Prior to all of this, she was a pretty outgoing girl who had a big smart mouth on her, probably like her father. And everything else she gets from her mother, all the bad traits, but that one she might get from me. Yeah, well, that probably didn't help her in this relationship with him. But she's also hard as nails, so gets that from me too, and probably a bit from her mother. So yeah, staunch would be the word. And once the penny was flipped, there was no going back. She was very prepared to make sure that he faced justice. And her statement, the evidence we had to back it up, and my statement would have made him very, very aware of the lengths that we were prepared to go to make sure that he was found guilty. And now I'm inquiring about victim impact statements because the court must know what damage he has caused so that can be taken into account in the sentencing, once again happening in about the second week of July. So, and I'll bring you up to date with that when we hear about that too. So that's going to be just something wonderful. I think, to really put a second line underneath it, if you like, and a big exclamation point. And we're hoping that the combined sentences that he gets from all these charges will keep him away for, well, at least long enough for me to forget that he's alive, and for Laura to do the same. That would be the best thing that could happen, I think, for all concerned. Anyway, on to other things. Are you guys familiar with the NDIS? Well, once again, thank you so much for all your prayers, all your thoughts, all your love. Yeah, it's overwhelming. And I couldn't have done it, I don't think, without you and, her coming on the road with me when we go on the road. The people in far north Queensland, the people in South Australia who've been on the phone to us so many times, but we've never been there yet. Everybody up and down the coast of Queensland who've been just so fabulous. You all are amazing folks, and I can't thank you enough for your prayers and your thoughts and your love for myself and my daughter. Thank you. All right, the NDIS. Well, the NDIS is an interesting little thing. It is currently what seems to be the biggest rort in Australia. And when I say the biggest rort in Australia, you won't be surprised to learn that it's run by this guy. Here's this guy telling us lies. Here's this guy thinking about the lie he's going to tell us after we've asked him a question he wasn't expecting to have to tell a lie about. This is him telling us to get fucked when he can't bother thinking of the lie, or we don't accept the lie that he's just told us. And this is the guy that's running the NDIS and sleeps with dogs, or lies with dogs. I don't know whichever way you want to look at that one. Bill Shorten is in charge of the NDIS. Now, I'm having some conversations with a person who works deep inside the NDIS. They're not sure that they want to go public, or they're not sure that they want to be a whistleblower or anything like that. But they are telling me of rorts beyond belief inside the NDIS. 1 month recently, they spent $3 billion on the NDIS. This is not a one-off month. This is something like a regular kind of deal. Now, this is completely unsustainable. $3 billion a month and growing. Somebody said that there was another 10 billion going in the next 3 months. So, well, that'd be close to $3 billion a month, just over, in fact, wouldn't it? Now, where is it going? Do you work in the NDIS scheme? Are you a provider? I don't know how the system is being rorted, but clearly it's being rorted wildly and nobody's doing much oversight. Are we in any way surprised? That's the bloke that's meant to be in charge. That's the bloke who's going to tell you, No, it's all going all right, mate. Don't worry about that. What? Who, me? No, it's you. You're the fucking problem, not us. NDIS is working well. People are happy. $3 billion, $3.5 or more billion dollars a month going out the door. Now, this person has told me of one story of a person who gets the NDIS support and gets it. They live in a very, very nice house. They are involved in the film industry. They get free flights to Sydney and Melbourne a couple of times a year. Industry sort of dues, if you know what they mean, have to attends. They drive an $80,000 sports car, and they are all under the NDIS. Now, this person was somehow triggered in the fraud section of the NDIS overlook service. They found this person and they took them to court. What happened? The person won. NDIS lost. Got to keep the car, got to keep all the money, got to keep everything and all the benefits. What? How does this work? Now, this is just one of many cases. Now, if you are working in the NDIS and you want to talk about it, I'm very keen to hear. So if you want to send me an email address and use a Proton address or something like that, Proton mail address or something like that, feel free to do that, and I will arrange another way that we can communicate. We are going to, on the back of this, because there is such strong interest, we are going to try and set up a whistleblower Dropbox somewhere. So if you are interested and you want to see a bit of truth go out in the world, then please let us know. I'm working on this person. Hopefully they will come to the fore. They've got a lot more stories, a lot more truth, and a lot more evidence that they could actually present, or at least could give me to present, should they choose to do so. This cannot go on. It's a unbelievable rort. And look, Aussies are good at finding the rorts in systems. I understand that. In part because we are being bludgeoned and beaten to death by taxes and every other frigging thing the government wants to do for us. Yeah. Oh, yeah, wacko schmack. Here we go. There's a great example. $400 for pens, $2,000 office chairs. Yep, exactly right. But you've got to sit on your bum for a long time. Yeah, you don't need to sit on one of those $2,000 chairs. I'm 100% with you. And in radio stations, we didn't get $2,000 chairs. We had to go and beg to get a $300 secondhand bloody chair from a secondhand store down the road. Yeah, just ridiculous. And that was only $300 because it had wheels. Back in those days, casters cost a lot more money. NDIS, yeah, will bankrupt the nation. I see Mick saying something along those lines. You're 100% sure, mate. We won't have to worry about any great financial reset. If we're expected to fork out $3 billion a month, well, and we're not allowed to dig ore out of the ground. We're not allowed to dig coal out of the ground. We're not allowed to dig any other precious metal or element out of our ground and sell it to cover those sorts of costs. I think we're all going to be very poor very quick, very starved, and not in a good way at all. So things we need to be aware of. Speaking of things we need to be aware of, ACMA. Well, I'll get into ACMA. Look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll play you a little video that I shot recently. I caught up with Dr. David Nixon. He's no longer a doctor. I can't call him a doctor anymore. He is a suspended doctor. David has been working on some very interesting stuff with his microscopes. And our plan was over Christmas, when I first started electrocuting water, to get together and try and take some pictures of the stuff that we were dragging out of this. Now, we decided to reconduct one of those experiments over the weekend, and I filmed it closely. Now, I've sped it up. The process actually ran about 5 minutes. You will see what happens. It's 2 glasses of tap water. One's run through a filtered tap system that's plumbed into the house, and the other is just straight through the tap. We'll have a bit of a discussion while the whole thing's playing, but just have a glance at this. So this one here on my right, your left, is filtered tap water through a very good integrated filtration system in the kitchen. This on the left, my left, your right, is straight out of the tap water. So ostensibly the same thing, they're coming out of the same pipe. One's been filtered through a high-end filtration system, the other one hasn't. That's essentially all that's different. So I'll hit the stopwatch and turn everything on. We'll have a look at 2.5 minutes, but I reckon if we gave it 5, that's probably all it needs. It's probably more than all it needs. So, all right, 3, 2, 1, go. So you can see the reaction here. The one on the right muddies up a much more, much quicker and has a higher volume. Now that could be for a variety of reasons. Obviously, the filtration process takes out some of the things that are reacting, like the chlorination, the fluoridation, and anything else. What you're seeing there at about the 3.5 minute mark is a cascading effect of it breaking down, and now it gets particularly interesting. The heavies start to fall to the bottom. So we'll stop the boil, so to speak. We didn't, but we would like to capture the gas coming off the top there. We've looked, it's not steam, it's not smoke, it's gas. So be interested to see what is actually in those gases, but unfortunately we don't know anybody with a mass spectrometer to analyze them. So if you happen to know somebody with a mass spectrometer, folks, we would love to hear from you. So you can see two vastly different things coming out of the same tap water, essentially the same water. We are unsure what the orange stuff is. We're not even sure what anything is in this. We are unsure what the orange stuff is. There were a few people, we've had a couple of meetings since we filmed this. At the time, we had a gentleman from Ecuador who was watching this on a laptop, and we were discussing the ins and outs of what was actually happening. He's an electrical engineer, so he understood the electrocuting water process much better than me, or the electrolysis process. So the end result is you wind up with a rather amazing orange bunch of crap, and then an amazing brown that leads to black at the lower points bunch of crap as well. There were some differences in the unfiltered tap water result that one versus the one that I got back at Christmas in the summertime. Now, that could be because there are a variety of different things in the water at different times of the year. Could be all sorts of stuff. What we are looking to try and do, and David did take away samples of all of that, and I do have some pictures. I haven't uploaded them here yet because I really don't know what I'm looking at. But David will come on and explain what we're looking at, and he's taken a lot more images, I believe, from deep inside the vial. Once it's been settled, you've sort of got to leave it for 24 hours or so before it really shows the true dense layers that happen in the water. Now, that's Brisbane water. Those electrolysis machines cost you about $8 from China. You'll get all sorts of warnings when you try to buy them that they are dangerous. You know, people get electrocuted. Well, people get electrocuted every day if you do something stupid with electricity. You could see what I did. They have an independent switch on them in a fuse. So I just turn the independent switch on. I plug it into a power box that has a isolated switch on it, and then I turn it on from the power box, not from the unit itself. I don't touch it. So it gets turned on and off from there. We are going to go and get some further tests from around the country in different parts and in different parts of the world, indeed, and run the same sort of test process. People have said, oh, look, it's those rods, you know, you're losing you're losing particles off there, and that's what you're seeing. It's the rust or it's the corrosion, whatever, coming off the two electrodes. Not the case. There might be a small amount that does come off those rods, and in my first tests, I measured them with a micrometer, and there was no perceivable difference, even after I'd run them for half an hour. No perceivable difference, but they do degrade over time, and I wouldn't use those more than maybe 3 times, and then they're probably useless. You'd throw away and try and get a new one. So if you're planning on doing your own water experiment, think of it like that, and don't do it for 30 minutes. Do it for 5. And San Pellegrino, stand back, because it tends to spark. Just saying. Bit weird, hey? So what else have I got here to have a bit of a chat to? Oh, the Brunson case in America. Now, I've heard that they didn't even get a hearing, didn't even basically get in the door of the Supreme Court the other day, or prior to last week. They essentially put their papers on the desk. The court said, yeah, we'll look at them, and then dismissed them. The reason for this is because they are submitting under a thing called a pro se common law litigant. So they are entering documents and trying to approach the court as a pro se common law litigant. Now, of course, the US Supreme Court, like all the justice system in America, is the corporate justice system, USA Inc. And you would get no standing at all. Geez, thanks, Bill. Yeah, mate, thank you. Yeah, mate, I'll make sure she gets that. Thank you so much. That'll blow her away. Since off pay week this week for her. So when I say off pay, it's off bloody payment week. So yeah, she's she'll love that. Thank you very much, Bill. Really appreciate it. Where was I? Yeah, so the Brunson case gets no standing in that court. They can't be seen, much less heard, in the US Inc. corporate justice system. But they are American citizens. They are covered by the Constitution. So why isn't the court hearing them? Well, this creates a problem. It creates such a problem that the military gets involved. And I think this could be one of the triggers that we're looking for, because all now the Brunsons need to do, I guess, and I'm sure it's been done, is to complain loudly to the military that they have no access to justice inside the American court system, and they believe that it is fraudulent, or that it is, in fact, a corporation not acting for the people, but acting for the corporation, which we know it is. This would give the military another reason, another excuse, another trigger, if you like, to step in and look at the case as a military tribunal before then acting on it. So these things could be happening in the background. July 4, I'm being told, is going to be a very interesting day for a number of reasons. I believe July 4 in Australia could hold a couple of surprises. I don't know if they're going to be big, but certainly can hold a couple of surprises. So the Brunson case, not over and done with yet, not by a long shot. I did see a post. It said it came from Guru. I'm not completely sure that it did come from Guru. I'll have a quick glance at my email and see if I can actually find the email itself. Yeah, right. Here we go. So the email basically says that here are the 2 paragraphs from the force posture agreement entered into between the government of Australia and the government of the United States of America. You can copy the link. Well, there is no link. Just goes to my docs, so can't post it here. Australia hereby grants to the United States operational control of agreed facilities and areas or portions thereof designated pursuant to Article 20-3 of the SOFA for construction activities and authority to undertake such communication activities and to make alterations and improvements to such agreed facilities and arenas. Point 2. It says, sorry, I've got to use my magnifying bits. Vessels and vehicles operated by or exclusively for United States forces may enter, exit, and move freely within the territory and territorial sea of Australia. United States government aircraft and civil aircraft that are at the time operating exclusively under contract to the United States Department of Defense may overfly, conduct aerial refueling, land and take off within and over the territory and territorial airspace of Australia. United States government aircraft, vessels, and vehicles shall be free from boarding and inspection without the consent of United States authorities. United States government vehicles are self-insured by the United States government, and no further insurance against third-party risks or proof of such insurance shall be required for the operation of such vehicles in Australia. And then, in short, it confirms that Australia is a territory of the US and therefore subject to US laws. Well, bullshit. Doesn't confirm any such thing. So please don't be confused about that in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't confirm that we are under US laws or subject to US laws. What this agreement does is it allows us freedom of movement for US forces into and out of Australia and access to certain bases. Now, the facility that immediately springs to mind is Pine Gap. It's more American than Australian. So they can build whatever they want there, and the Australian government basically has no say. They have some right of oversight, but it's interesting to note that there has never been a prime minister, I don't think, up until maybe the latest criminal, who has been to Pine Gap. So politicians are not welcome at Pine Gap, and probably for good reason. There are other American installations, particularly listening points and particularly HARP or DARPA installations around the country. We've seen plenty of those with our weather modification. Exmouth springs to mind in WA. There's a couple of places in Queensland and further down south as well. So these are the agreements that allow freedom of movement for technical staff, for operators, for equipment, for machinery, for everything else. The operation of vehicles on Australian roads and all that kind of thing is to cover them if they get into a car accident, and essentially the US government guarantees that they are insured, that they will pay any costs or damages awarded and any third-party damages. So there is in no way does this agreement, in the first part of it, I'll read it again, Australia hereby grants to the United States operational control of agreed facilities and areas or portions thereof designated pursuant to Article 20-3 of the SOFA. I haven't looked up Article 23 of the SOFA. That's probably worth doing, but I only saw this just before I came on the air and I thought it was worth mentioning. Now, they are authorized for construction activities and authority to undertake such construction activities on and make alterations and improvements to such agreed facilities and areas. So unless the agreed facilities and areas are the entire Australian continent, and they're taking over everything, government down, then this can't be what Guru or whoever sent it claims it to be. So don't go and get too worried about that, or don't go and get a head up of steam about that. I don't believe that there is anything you need to worry about. I did get an interesting one today from someone. Brisbane may change its name prior to 2032 Olympics. They may change it to the Aboriginal name because they've changed Fraser Island back to its original Indigenous name. We did say Kigari because it's spelled K''Gari, but I am reliably informed by my daughter, who has absolutely, as far as I'm aware, no Aboriginal blood in her at all, that it is meant to be pronounced Gari. So if that is the case, I'd love some confirmation. But she seems to think that it's got to be pronounced Gari. So if that is the case, great. But they're talking about changing Brisbane back to its original name. Now, Brisbane didn't have an original name. It was an area. It had a river, and it was a salty river at that, and it was a bit of a land barrier. Get it? Needed canoes to get across there. Needed to build that sort of infrastructure because the river was wide and rushing. And of course, that wasn't quite the case. The further up the Brisbane River you go, and maybe splits up the Bremer, the narrower it gets. But it's still pretty deep, very deep in places. So I don't know that there was this name that they've come up with. If they can change the name of a major capital city in Brisbane before the voice vote gets won, imagine what they can change after the voice vote is won, if it would to go that way. Just imagine the power that they would have then. Because if they can change the name of a capital city of Australia now without public consultation, without a vote, without anything, then we're in deep shit when it comes to what's going to happen with the voice. Thankfully, it seems like the voice yes vote is not garnering much support, but we cannot let our guard down. No is the only way to vote for this thing. If you are an Indigenous person and you are in any way thinking that this is good for you, then you are a corporate Aboriginal, a corporate Indigenous who is getting paid and plans on keeping most of that money for yourself and not letting it filter down into the places it should be. I tip my cap tonight. I'm going to finish on a good story. I tip my cap on to the marvellous council at Broken Hill. Pardon me. The Broken Hill Council, who weren't aware that they were paying for Welcome to Country ceremonies, have now changed their laws, their bylaws or their council, whatever's, to say, well, we don't think it's much of a welcome if you've got to pay for it. That's more a statement, not a welcome. So they've stood up and said, we are no longer paying for Welcome to Country and smoking ceremonies at our official events. We will still have them, by all means, still have them. If you want to come and do the ceremony, we're happy to have you. But no, we won't pay. So needless to say, the corporate Aborigines who are in charge of doing those smoking ceremonies, those Welcome to Country ceremonies, all those public presentations of our love of our Indigenous brothers and sisters. In Broken Hill, the junior members get $150. The senior members get $250. If you go to a bigger city, there is more money involved, to a point where there are thousands of dollars involved if you're doing a Welcome to Country for a football game, for instance, in a capital city. Thousands of dollars involved. Now, how is it a welcome if you've got to be paid to give it, to turn up? How's that right? No, that's just corporate fucking theft. That's what that is. So it turns out in Broken Hill, there are many, many Indigenous brothers and sisters who are very happy to give a Welcome to Country ceremony, who are very happy to give a smoking ceremony, who are very happy to do a dance, to do to put on a cultural event for free, rather than be having to charge for it or expecting to be paid for it. So that is something that should be rolled out far and wide through every council and state office, through every federal government bureaucratic institution that believes that it's okay to fork out hundreds to thousands of our taxpayer dollars to pay someone to give a welcome, not because they want to give it, but because they're getting paid to give it. Just wrong on so many levels. Sooner that stops, the better. So get into it. My Place, I know that you guys have got council groups that you're putting stuff to councils for. Make sure, and don't accuse your councils, because most councillors are unaware that there is a cost involved for this, right? This is just something that has been snuck in the back door because somebody decided a little while ago that this ancient and terribly old ceremony, this welcome to country ceremony, this ancient and culturally, important ceremony that was thought up in 1976 has to be paid for to be relevant. That's right. Maybe you missed that. This ancient ceremony, this ancient and important welcome to country ceremony was thought up, conceived in about 10 minutes in 1976 when somebody said, "Oh, can you do something to welcome them?" And somebody came up with this idea. "Oh, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that. Yep, that'll do." So, yeah, the ancient welcome to country ceremony conceived of and first done in 1976. And you get paid for it. And they've probably been paid for it since 1976, right? So, My Place, get into your councils about this. Let them know that this is what's happening. And is that right? Are there Indigenous brothers and sisters in your area who would welcome the opportunity to present cultural welcomes to country, smoking ceremonies, and associated other culturally relevant events in your area, and don't expect to be paid for it? Because it's what you want to do. You want to share your country or your culture with your community. You want to welcome them into it, don't you? If I had to pay every time I turned up to go and, get welcomed somewhere, thanks for coming. I guess, you're running a business then, aren't you? It's probably all right. But so if you want to go and run corporate smoking ceremonies and charge for it, get an ABN and, start paying tax on it. I guess that's the way it should work. But I'm just quite surprised that most councils are unaware, most councillors are unaware that this is actually a thing. And I would highly commend my place brothers and sisters to raise the question and ask whether or not they will continue that practice of paying for a welcome to country when it sort of takes away the meaning for it for me. I mean, I'd think a lot more of your welcome to country if you turned up free like I did to hear it. If you turned up free to give it like I turned up free to hear it, I'd feel a lot more welcome about it. I don't begrudge people making a dollar. I really don't. But when it's set up in a way that disadvantages the disadvantaged, and the people doing the disadvantaging are members of the disadvantaged community, I think it sucks. And I would have hoped that people inside those Indigenous communities would be empowered now to say, well, listen, old Joe doesn't need to do that, or Joanne doesn't need to charge $300 to do that. I'll come and do the smoking ceremony for you for nothing, or I'll come and do the welcome to country. Nobody says that you've got to stay around all day and spend 25 hours, putting in. Most of these welcome to country ceremonies and smoking ceremonies that I've seen are fairly short. They're not long events, and they are relevant. But are they worth charging for? Because it sort of takes the meaning away from me. Maybe I'm just a bit old-fashioned that way, but I smell corrupt rather than old-fashioned. That's just me. Redneck Rumbler, welcome to your country, brother. No charge. No. Well, there you go. It seems like it's going to be another interesting time in Parliament in the near future, because turns out these sneaky, rotten bastards have now decided to set up a very interesting thing through ACMA, Powers to Combat Misinformation and Disinformation. This is going to get interesting, folks. Now, they are talking about millions of dollars in fines, and it could work out that they would try and use some of those powers that they look like they're trying to get to attack anybody like myself, anyone like Aussie Cossack, anyone like, I suppose, Guru or Bozy, or any of the others, John Wilson, for spreading misinformation. Now, they're going to try and create an act that will outlaw this kind of behavior. It's your chance, it says here, to have your say on the proposed laws to hold digital platform services accountable. Now, what they're saying here is they're going to hold BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, all those sorts of services accountable for what we as the sorry, I'm just trying to get this link so you can do it. So what we as broadcasters or podcasters or whatever you want to call us can be taken off the air, and they will find a way to try and make us, well, it would be stupid to try and take us to a court, to some kind of an arbitration where we get a say, because we know we can back up everything we say. We have the proof. They don't want that proof to be heard. What they want to be able to do is threaten the providers, the YouTubes, the BitChutes, the Rumbles of the world, to take us down and not give us anywhere where we will be able to get the message out. Well, I got news for you. That will never happen. There will always be a platform for truth. There will always be a platform for freedom. There will always be a platform for people to fight tyranny. And tyranny is what the Australian government is planning on introducing with this piece of information. So I have put in the chat, I'll post it up again, I've posted a link to this particular webpage. Down the bottom of this webpage, there is a Have Your Say link. You can click on here and it will tell you what you can do with your submission. You can remain anonymous. You can make it public or private. You can publish a name, or the published name you would like to put it under. You can put your short comment. Please try and make those comments less swearing and more factual. Maybe you've got something you would like to write out in greater detail. You can attach those files there too. There has to be contact details added, and then you are able to submit all this. Now, all of this has to be submitted by the 23rd of, I think we're up the top again, 23rd of August from memory. I beg your pardon, the 6th of August, 2023. Other than private submissions, they may be able to go a little bit later, but you'd have to apply for private submission. So, folks, if you want to protect the voice of freedom, if you want to protect Aussie Cossack, Guru, anybody else that you happen to follow in the alternate media, anybody that is giving you the truth, this has to be fought. You need to go click on the link that I've posted in the chat. Go there, fill that in, and have your say. Please, if you're going to agree with it, then, well, I'm not encouraging you to. But if you think that what they're trying to do here is stifle the truth, then have your say. Who in ACMA is going to be the arbiter of truth here? Who is going to decide what is misinformation? Okay, in some cases it's fairly blatant and obvious, but in others, and thinking of the spicy cough in particular, a concerted effort which now, coming up 3 years down the track, we are discovering was a complete lie. total misinformation coming from the trusted sources of your government and your mainstream media, who are controlled by fucking ACMA. This has got a shit-stained smell all over it, folks. Do not let them get away with this. Make sure you go to the website. I've posted it up a few times in the chat now. It doesn't have to be a long thing, but if you want to, you can write something quite long and detailed. Just don't be abusive. Write the facts. Write what you think they are going to take. Who are they going to put up to decide what is the misinformation, what is the truth? How will they be able to tell the difference between fact and fiction when the fact checkers that we've been dealing with for the last 3 years have been paid for by Big Pharma? So have ACMA. Okay, ACMA are also been well involved in this coercion using mainstream media. It is, I'm sure, I would be wholly, completely amazed and shocked if ACMA weren't involved in the magnificent mainstream media 1-year tax-free rebate that they're getting. ACMA would be overjoyed to see their partners being paid off in such a way. That is, paid off. That's the bribe, folks. The media, the mainstream media, every media company in this country gets a 1-year tax rebate. That's 100% of their tax comes back to them free of charge. Thank you very much for pushing the lies. Now, when we discovered that, and we've known that there's something behind it for ages, but if this kind of a commission gets established, if this kind of cover-up commission is established, what happens to folks like Simeon? What happens to folks like Guru or Bozy or me or any of the other Maria Z's of the world? They could come after us with $2.75 million fines. Not likely to be able to get that out of me, so that's not going to happen. But one thing, while we're watching this movie, if you want to feel like you're doing something and be entertained, then you can get involved with this particular distraction that's coming from the slimiest piece of shit we've ever seen selected for government in this country, Albanese. My God, they are a bunch of criminals of epic standards, and I just can't wait for them to bring on the military tribunals. Just can't wait for them to bring on the military tribunals. Anyway, folks, that's where I'm up to tonight. Had a little bit of reading we could get through today, which was good. I've actually been busy helping my housemate with a voiceover project. So we'll have some news on that. If you're in Brisbane or coming to Brisbane and you like doing walkarounds, you might hear my voice a bit in the not too distant future. But we'll have more on that when we release news on that. And tomorrow night, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Today has just been a red letter day for Laura, and I can't thank you again for everything that you've done, folks. The prayers, the phone calls, the text messages, and just the thoughts, the love that you've shown her and me right through this whole process where we've all become quite acquainted with each other is just wonderful. It is life-changing in so many ways. So, yeah. Can't thank you enough, folks. And as I keep saying to you, I will keep fighting for you every step of the way. I'm even fighting for those dickheads on the road. Some battles you fight harder for.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!